Through that glass wall, I watched Jordan Pierce explaining my lean manufacturing optimization system to the Japanese executives like he'd invented it himself. Every efficiency metric, every quality protocol, every cost reduction algorithm, that was 12 years of my work, and he was getting the standing ovation. Your presentation's not needed. Jordan's got it. That's what Daniel Pierce told me 5 minutes before I was supposed to walk into that conference room and deliver the Q3 production report. Didn't even look me in the eye, just tapped the folder in my hands like it was yesterday's newspaper and waved me off with that practiced executive half smile. I'm Tim Walsh, 48 years old, and I've been running the production optimization systems at Hanover Manufacturing since the Tokushin Industries merger back in 2012. For 12 years, I've made sure those automotive parts lines run smoother than a Swiss watch. But apparently, I wasn't the guy they wanted explaining it to the board anymore. I stood there maybe 10 seconds, invisible behind that glass. Inside, Jordan was pointing at my Six Sigma flowcharts, gesturing toward my Kaizen implementation timeline, talking about my vendor integration protocols like he understood what any of it meant. The presentation slides weren't just reports. They were built from 4,800 nights of staying late to debug Line 3, from weekend calls when the hydraulic systems went down, from every efficiency gain I'd squeezed out of equipment that should have been replaced 5 years ago. Before we go on, let me tell you something. 97% of people who hear workplace stories like this never hit that subscribe button. If you're listening, maybe do that. Helps me bring more of these revenge stories your way. Trust me, this one's worth it. Anyway, I turned around and walked back to my cubicle. Didn't slam the folder down, didn't mutter anything. Just opened my laptop and went back to analyzing the weekend production logs like nothing had happened. But something had happened, something that would cost Hanover Manufacturing more money than Daniel Pierce's son was worth. See, when Hanover merged with Tokushin 12 years ago, everything was complete chaos. American workers trying to adapt to Japanese quality standards, Japanese efficiency metrics that didn't translate to our union shop environment. Two completely different manufacturing philosophies crashing into each other like freight trains. My office back then was a converted supply closet next to the loading dock. No windows, just me, 2 ancient Dell monitors, and a space heater that barely worked. But when Line 2 seized up at 2 a.m., when our Korean steel supplier shipped us off-spec materials, when the EPA inspector showed up asking about our wastewater treatment, they called me, every single time. I rebuilt everything from scratch, took our efficiency rating from 72.4% to 94.2% in 18 months. Not with fancy software or expensive consultants, but by understanding every bolt, every bearing, every timing sequence in those production lines. I could tell you which hydraulic pump on Line 3 needed replacement based on the sound it made during startup. I knew exactly how long each quality checkpoint should take if the operators were following proper procedure. The Japanese executives loved it. Hiroshi Yamamoto, their head of North American operations, used to bring visitors to our plant specifically to see what he called American-Japanese hybrid efficiency. Our quality metrics became the benchmark for their other facilities. When Tokushin's board wanted to expand manufacturing in Mexico and Canada, they sent me down to train their engineers on our protocols. My wife Linda teaches math part-time at Riverside Community College. Our daughter Emily just started her sophomore year studying industrial engineering at Ohio State. Our son Ryan's applying to colleges, hoping to follow his sister into engineering. The plant job paid well enough to cover Emily's $18,000 annual tuition and start saving for Ryan's education. We had a solid middle-class life, predictable, stable. Then Jordan Pierce showed up 4 months ago. Nobody said it out loud, but everyone knew. Daniel Pierce's son from his second marriage to that marketing consultant from Columbus, 28 years old, fresh MBA from Stanford, and a LinkedIn profile that read like a consulting firm's wet dream. His first week, he shadowed HR, then accounting, then quality control. Week 2, he started asking questions that proved he'd never seen the inside of a real manufacturing facility. Hey Tim, quick question about these throughput metrics. Always started with quick question. Never was. He'd pull up my monthly reports on his tablet and suggest improvements like implementing blockchain-based supply chain transparency or leveraging AI-driven predictive maintenance algorithms without understanding that our equipment was built in 2008 and ran best when you actually knew how to listen to it. I answered his questions. Wasn't threatened by him, really. You can't just step into 12 years of institutional knowledge and expect to run complex manufacturing operations. The union guys trusted me to fight for safe working conditions. Our suppliers had my personal cell phone for emergency situations. The Japanese quality auditors wouldn't accept anyone else's signature on compliance reports. But then Stephen Martinez pulled me aside by the vending machines. Stephen's been our union shop steward for 15 years. Doesn't panic easily. Tim, they're talking about restructuring again, he said, keeping his voice low. Flattening hierarchies, making room for fresh perspectives. Same week, Norman Parker from Quality Control mentioned seeing Jordan's name on a draft organizational chart. Looked like they're creating a new position, Norman said, Director of Manufacturing Innovation or something like that. That Friday, HR called me in for what they called a routine job description review. Just updating. Responsibilities for clarity, they said. Making sure everything's current for internal documentation purposes. Linda, our HR generalist who'd processed my performance reviews for 8 years, couldn't quite make eye contact while she explained it. I'd seen this dance before. The slow fade-out. The gradual marginalization. The way companies ease out employees they think are too expensive or too set in their ways. But here's what they'd forgotten about me. I'd negotiated something very specific during that merger 12 years ago, something buried deep in the contract language that nobody bothered to read anymore. See, when Tokushin Industries acquired Hanover back in 2012, I was the only engineer on either side who understood both American production culture and Japanese quality methodologies. The merger was falling apart. Union workers were threatening strikes because they didn't understand the new quality standards. Japanese executives were frustrated because our efficiency numbers didn't match their expectations. 2 weeks in, production was down 23% and getting worse. That's when Hiroshi Yamamoto called me into his temporary office. Timothy-san, he said in his careful English, we need bridge person, someone who understands both systems. They couldn't afford to lose me, and I knew it. So when they offered to make me senior manufacturing engineer with a 5-year contract, I didn't negotiate for a bigger salary or corner office. I negotiated for leverage. Buried between equity vesting schedules and performance bonus calculations, I had my attorney add Clause 6.4, leadership transition and departure rights. The language was careful, legal, boring. If my operational authority was reassigned or diminished without my written consent, I could resign immediately with full acceleration of all deferred compensation, including performance multipliers and equity vesting. They signed it without reading it carefully. Too busy trying to merge two incompatible corporate cultures. Too focused on making the numbers work on paper to worry about one engineer's contract details. But I remembered every word. Jordan started attending my daily production meetings after week 3. Didn't contribute anything useful, just sat in the back with his tablet taking notes. When I'd explain why we couldn't implement his automated quality control dashboard, he'd nod like he understood, then suggested again the following week with slightly different buzzwords. The breaking point came during our monthly review with the Japanese executives. Hiroshi Yamamoto was asking about our Q2 efficiency improvements when Jordan interrupted. Actually, I've been analyzing Tim's legacy processes, he said, and I think we're missing some opportunities for digital transformation. Legacy processes, that's what he called 12 years of optimization work that had made us the highest performing plant in Tokushin's North American operations. Could you elaborate, Pierce-san? Hiroshi asked politely. In Japanese business culture, you don't interrupt your seniors unless you have something important to say. Jordan launched into a 10-minute presentation about Industry 4.0 integration and IoT-enabled predictive analytics. Big words, no substance. He wanted to replace our proven preventive maintenance schedule with AI algorithms that would predict equipment failures. Never mind that our current system had reduced unplanned downtime by 67% over 3 years. Hiroshi listened patiently, then asked a simple question. Pierce-san, what is current MTBF for Line 3 hydraulic assembly? Jordan blinked. I'm sorry? Mean time between failures. Basic reliability metric. Walsh-san tracks this daily. I'd have to look that up. Is 2,847 hours, I said quietly, up from 1,156 hours when we implemented the current maintenance protocol. Hiroshi nodded. And cost savings from this improvement? Jordan glanced at his tablet, then at me. He had no idea. $127,000 annually in reduced downtime and parts replacement, I continued, not counting the overtime savings from fewer emergency repairs. After the meeting, Hiroshi pulled me aside. Timothy-san, this young man understands nothing about manufacturing. Why does Pierce-san include him in operational decisions? I didn't answer directly. In Japanese culture, you don't criticize your superior's family relationships, but Hiroshi was sharp enough to understand the political dynamics. 2 weeks later, I overheard a conversation I wasn't supposed to hear. Daniel Pierce was on a call with someone from corporate HR, his office door cracked open just enough for sound to carry. "We need to create a pathway for Jordan without completely displacing Tim," Daniel was saying. Maybe a co-director structure or something. "Tim's got institutional knowledge we can't afford to lose, but Jordan needs operational experience to develop as a leader." Co-director structure. Corporate speak for, "We're demoting Tim but don't want to call it that." The caller said something I couldn't make out. Then Daniel responded, "Legal already reviewed the reorganization plan. Jordan would have official authority over manufacturing operations. Tim would maintain his technical expertise role but report through the new structure." That night, I went home and pulled out my contract. Linda found me at the kitchen table at 11 p.m. reading through 47 pages of legal language by lamplight. "What's all this?" she asked, setting down a cup of coffee. "Insurance," I said. She sat down across from me. "Tim, what's going on at work?" I told her everything. Jordan's incompetence, Daniel's favoritism, the reorganization plan I'd overheard, the contract clause I'd negotiated 12 years ago. "So if they officially put him in charge of you," Linda said, "I walk away with everything. Full equity vesting, all deferred compensation, performance bonuses, plus penalty interest if they delay payment." Linda did the math in her head. She taught calculus to community college. Freshman. Numbers were her thing. "How much are we talking about?" I'd run the calculations twice. Base amount is $4.2 million. With the performance multipliers based on our efficiency improvements, maybe another $600,000. And if they take longer than 5 business days to process it, penalty interest is 3.2% daily compounding. Linda stared at me. "Tim, that's..." "I know. Emily's tuition is covered. Ryan can go anywhere he wants. We could pay off the house." "I know," I said again, "but only if they're stupid enough to officially demote me." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "What are the chances they're that stupid?" I looked at the contract again, at the clause they'd signed without understanding. "Pretty good," I said. "Daniel Pierce thinks he's protecting his son. Jordan thinks he understands manufacturing. Neither of them has read the fine print." The announcement came 3 days later. Company-wide email sent at 4:47 p.m. on a Friday. Organizational Enhancement Initiative was the subject line. Corporate speak for "We're shuffling the deck chairs." Jordan Pierce was being promoted to Director of Manufacturing Operations, effective immediately. The email mentioned streamlined reporting structures and enhanced operational efficiency. It mentioned Jordan's innovative perspective and strategic vision for manufacturing excellence. It didn't mention me at all. But buried in the third paragraph was the phrase that mattered. "All production oversight and operational decision-making will report through the new directorial structure." I read it twice, then forwarded it to my attorney with a single word. Triggered. Within 30 minutes, she called me back. "Tim, are you sure about this? Once you submit the resignation letter, there's no taking it back." "I'm sure, because they're going to panic when they realize what they've done." "Good," I said. "Maybe next time they'll read their contracts before they sign them." That Monday morning, I came in early and wrote the cleanest resignation letter of my career. 3 paragraphs, no emotion, just facts. First paragraph, formal notice of resignation, effective immediately due to role reassignment without written consent. Second paragraph, reference to clause 6.4 of my 2012 merger contract. Third paragraph, calculation of total compensation due under the accelerated vesting schedule. I printed 1 copy, signed it by hand, and walked straight to Daniel Pierce's office at 8:15 a.m. His secretary wasn't in yet, so I knocked directly. He was reading something on his computer, probably checking his golf handicap or reviewing Jordan's latest innovation proposal. "Tim, good morning. Come in, sit down. I wanted to talk to you about the transition anyway. Please read this first," I said, handing him the letter. He kept smiling while he read the first paragraph. The smile faded during the second. By the third paragraph, He'd gone completely pale. What is this exactly? My resignation. He laughed, but it came outstrained. Come on, Tim, we can work something out. Jordan's promotion doesn't change your value to this company. Page 2 has the detailed calculations. He flipped the page and his jaw went slack. The base calculation, 12 years of deferred equity at current valuation, plus performance bonuses tied to efficiency improvements, plus penalty interest if payment was delayed beyond 5 business days. $4.2 million? His voice cracked slightly. This can't be right. It is. Your legal department signed off on the contract structure in 2012. He stared at the numbers like they might change if he looked hard enough. The performance multipliers alone are $680,000, I finished, based on documented efficiency improvements from 72.4% to 94.2% over 12 years. It's all in the quarterly reports. Daniel set the letter down carefully, like it might explode. Tim, let's be reasonable here. We can restructure Jordan's role, maybe a co-director arrangement. Too late for that. The email went company-wide Friday. Jordan has operational authority over manufacturing. That triggers the clause. Legal needs to review this. They already did, 12 years ago. I watched him reach for his phone, then stop. You planned this. I protected myself. There's a difference. What Daniel Pierce didn't understand was that I'd been watching corporate politics longer than his son had been alive. I'd seen good engineers pushed aside for executives' relatives, watched institutional knowledge walk out the door because nobody valued experience anymore. The clause wasn't revenge, it was insurance. An hour later, Daniel was in an emergency meeting with legal, HR, and the CFO. I know because Steven Martinez texted me from the break room, big shots running around like the building's on fire. What did you do? By noon, word had spread through the plant floor. Not the details, but enough. The guy who'd kept their lines running for 12 years had just resigned. The guy who could fix line 3 when it made that grinding noise nobody else understood. The guy the Japanese executive specifically requested for quality audits. Norman Parker found me clearing out my desk. Tim, tell me this isn't permanent. It's permanent. What about the maintenance protocols? The vendor relationships? The union safety procedures you wrote? What about them? Norman lowered his voice. Jordan doesn't know any of that stuff. This morning he asked me why we couldn't just buy cheaper hydraulic fluid from China instead of using the German supplier. I stopped packing and looked at him. He said what? Wanted to cut costs. I tried explaining that the German fluid meets Tokushin's viscosity standards, but he said standards are just suggestions. That hydraulic fluid cost us $340 per barrel versus $180 for the Chinese alternative. But the Chinese fluid would destroy our pump seals in 6 months, causing downtime that would cost $50,000 per incident. Jordan was looking at spreadsheets instead of understanding systems. Norman, who's handling the quarterly quality audit next week? His face went white. The Japanese team expects your signature on the compliance reports. Better tell Jordan he's in charge now. At 2 p.m., my phone buzzed. Text from Hiroshi Yamamoto. Timothy-san, heard concerning news about organizational changes. Please call when convenient. I didn't call back. Hiroshi was sharp enough to figure out what had happened. More importantly, he was probably already calling Tokushin headquarters in Osaka to report that their best-performing North American facility had just lost its key engineer to corporate politics. Wednesday morning brought the first real crisis. Line 2 went down during the night shift with a hydraulic failure. Standard procedure was to call me, but obviously that wasn't happening anymore. Jordan tried following my written troubleshooting guide, but hydraulic systems don't read manuals. You have to listen to them, feel the pressure variations, understand the timing sequences. By the time I heard about it from Linda, who got a text from Steven's wife, they'd been down for 14 hours. Jordan had called in outside technicians at $400 per hour, but they couldn't diagnose the problem without shutting down the entire line for safety reasons. The issue was probably the pressure relief valve on pump station 7. $80 part, 20-minute replacement if you knew what you were looking for. But Jordan didn't know. The technicians didn't know the system, and nobody wanted to take responsibility for guessing wrong on equipment that cost $2.8 million to replace. Thursday brought worse news. Our biggest client, Midwest Auto Components, called to express concerns about quality continuity. They'd heard through industry channels that key personnel had left. Their contracts specifically required consistent technical oversight by certified personnel. Jordan tried to reassure them by explaining his MBA credentials and vision for manufacturing innovation didn't go well. Midwest Auto had been in business for 40 years. They wanted to talk to someone who understood metallurgy and precision tolerances, not someone who talked about synergistic supply chain optimization. By Friday, the panic was obvious. Daniel Pierce called 3 times. HR sent 2 emails asking for transition documentation. Legal requested copies of all vendor contracts and quality certifications. I ignored them all. Saturday morning, I drove to the plant just to see for myself. The parking lot was half empty. Weekend maintenance crew was smaller than usual. Through the chain-link fence, I could see Line 2 was still down. Yellow caution tape around the hydraulic station. Emergency lighting, blinking. Jordan's innovation was off to a great start. Sunday evening, Linda found me in my workshop, organizing the tools I'd collected over 25 years in manufacturing. "Any regrets?" she asked. I looked at the torque wrenches, precision micrometers, and specialized hydraulic fittings. That had helped me understand machines the way other people understood books. None whatsoever. The money came through this afternoon. $4.2 million base plus $680,000 in performance multipliers plus $85,000 in penalty interest because they'd taken 7 business days to process payment instead of the contractually required 5. "What now?" Linda asked. I smiled. Now we see how long Hanover Manufacturing can survive without someone who actually knows how to run the place. 3 weeks after my resignation, I got a call from Klaus Weber at Kruger Manufacturing, German-owned automotive supplier looking to expand their U.S. operations with a new facility in Tennessee. Klaus had been tracking Hanover's efficiency numbers for years through industry reports. More importantly, he knew exactly who was responsible for those numbers. "Timothy Walsh," he said in his precise English, "we have been watching your work with great interest. Would you consider discussing an opportunity?" Kruger was everything Hanover wasn't. They valued experience over politics, engineering expertise over MBA buzzwords. Klaus offered me the position of Chief Operations Advisor, complete operational autonomy, equity package, relocation assistance to Nashville. They wanted someone to design their new automated facility from the ground up. I accepted before hanging up the phone. Meanwhile, Hanover Manufacturing was discovering what happens when you lose institutional knowledge overnight. Line 2 stayed down for 6 days because Jordan refused to pay the premium for German hydraulic fluid, instead ordering Chinese alternatives that destroyed the pump seals within 48 hours. The replacement cost, $47,000 in parts, plus $23,000 in emergency technician fees. Stephen Martinez called me during my second week at Kruger. "Tim, you need to know what's happening here." "I really don't." Jordan tried implementing his automated quality control system yesterday, shut down all 3 production lines because the software couldn't interpret our calibration standards. I stopped reviewing Kruger's equipment specifications. "What do you mean it couldn't interpret them?" "The AI system was programmed for metric tolerances. All our equipment runs on imperial measurements." Jordan didn't know there was a difference. The shutdown lasted 16 hours while they manually recalibrated every quality checkpoint. Cost, $89,000 in lost production, plus overtime for 47 workers. But the real disaster came when Hiroshi Yamamoto arrived for the quarterly audit. Norman Parker gave me the details later. Hiroshi had flown in from Detroit expecting to review our standard compliance reports, the ones I'd been preparing for 12 years using Tokushin's specific quality protocols. Instead, Jordan presented him with PowerPoint slides about digital transformation initiatives and IoT-enabled quality assurance. Yamamoto-san asked to see the actual quality data, Norman told me. Jordan showed him screenshots from his new dashboard software. Hiroshi asked for the raw measurements. Jordan said the software handled all that automatically. In Japanese manufacturing culture, you don't trust automated systems without understanding the underlying data. Quality isn't about pretty dashboards. It's about precision, consistency, and documented proof that every component meets exact specifications. "What did Hiroshi say?" I asked. He asked to speak with the senior quality engineer. Jordan said that was him now. Hiroshi asked about his certifications in Six Sigma and lean manufacturing. Jordan said those were outdated methodologies. I winced. Telling a Japanese executive that lean manufacturing is outdated is like telling a Swiss watchmaker that precision doesn't matter. The audit failed. For the first time in 12 years, Hanover Manufacturing didn't receive Tokushin's quality certification. Without that certification, they couldn't bid on any new Japanese contracts. Worse, existing contracts included clauses allowing Tokushin to renegotiate terms if quality standards weren't maintained. 2 months later, Midwest Auto Components canceled their annual contract, $8.7 million in guaranteed business. Their official reason was concerns about quality continuity and technical oversight. Their unofficial reason, according to industry sources, was that Jordan had tried selling them on switching to cheaper Chinese steel to optimize cost structures. Midwest Auto had been making precision engine components for 4 decades. They didn't want optimized cost structures. They wanted parts that wouldn't fail at 80,000 miles. Meanwhile, Kruger's Tennessee facility was becoming everything I dreamed of building. Modern equipment, properly trained operators, and management that actually listened when engineers explained why certain procedures mattered. Our efficiency metrics were hitting 97.8% in month 3. Better than anything I'd achieved at Hanover. The industry noticed. When Automotive Manufacturing Weekly ran their annual efficiency rankings, Kruger's new facility placed 2nd in North America. The article specifically mentioned German precision engineering combined with American manufacturing expertise under the leadership of Chief Operations Advisor Timothy Walsh. Jordan probably read that article. I hoped he did. 6 months after leaving Hanover, I was reviewing vendor proposals when Klaus knocked on my office door. "Timothy, I have interesting news. Midwest Auto Components has requested meetings about potential partnership." Midwest wasn't just any client. They were Hanover's biggest customer until Jordan drove them away. Now they wanted to work with Kruger, specifically because they knew I was there. "They mentioned your name specifically," Klaus continued. "Said they needed a supplier who understood precision manufacturing and quality consistency. The contract was worth $12 million annually. Kruger's largest deal to date, and it came directly from Hanover's former client base. But the sweetest revenge came 8 months later when I opened the Nashville Business Journal over morning coffee. The headline read, "Hanover Manufacturing reports $23 million loss, considers facility closure." The article detailed everything: failed quality audits, lost contracts, equipment breakdowns, and management transitions that disrupted operational continuity. Daniel Pierce was quoted saying they were evaluating strategic options for the facility's future. Translation: they were looking for a buyer. Emily called that evening from Ohio State. "Dad, I saw the news about your old company. Are you okay?" "I'm fine, sweetheart. Better than fine. Ryan showed me your LinkedIn profile. Chief Operations Advisor at Kruger Manufacturing. That sounds important. It is important. I'm building something new instead of watching something old fall apart." 2 weeks later, Steven Martinez texted me. Jordan resigned. Daniel announced early retirement. Japanese executives took over management. I wasn't surprised. Tokushin Industries had probably been planning that takeover since the failed audit. When you spend $340 million acquiring a manufacturing facility, you don't let nepotism and incompetence destroy your investment. The final irony came 3 months later. Kruger acquired Hanover's equipment and client contracts for $18 million, less than half what Tokushin had originally paid. I flew to Ohio to oversee the asset transfer, walking through the same production lines I'd optimized for 12 years. Line 2 was still running Chinese hydraulic fluid. The seals would need complete replacement within 6 months. Line 3 had that familiar grinding sound from the bearing assembly that Jordan never learned to recognize. The quality control station was covered in dust. Nobody had calibrated the measurement tools since I'd left. Norman Parker met me by the loading dock. "Tim, I'm sorry about how everything ended." "Don't be sorry, Norman. It ended exactly the way it was supposed to." I looked around at the facility that had been my professional home for 12 years, now quiet and half empty. Sometimes the best way to prove your worth is to let people see what happens without you. Jordan Pierce learned that lesson the hard way. So did his father. As for me, I learned something more valuable. When you build your expertise carefully and protect yourself legally, you don't have to choose between your principles and your paycheck. Sometimes you get both. And sometimes, if you're patient enough, you get to watch incompetence destroy itself while you build something better somewhere else. That's the sweetest revenge of all. Your decades of experience aren't just knowledge, they're leverage. And the smartest thing you can do is protect that leverage legally before you ever need it. In a world that worships youth and innovation, the most devastating weapon an experienced professional can wield is simply stepping back and letting incompetence prove itself.